Today on the Veteran Ventures podcast, we have Liz Johnson. After serving in the United States Army and as a deputy sheriff in Washington, she transitioned into real estate and has been a successful real estate agent for the last 21 years. She's a great example of how to make lemonade out of life giving you lemons, and her attitude is absolutely infectious. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Most people you talk to when transitioning out of the military have never actually transitioned out themselves. You're probably getting a bunch of opinions from people who plan on staying in until retirement and have no idea how to actually show empathy for your situation. This podcast is about providing fresh perspectives and a front row seat for conversations with successful veterans doing big things after leaving the military.
Well, nice to meet you, Liz.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, no, we're super excited. So, of course, Brent Maynard is the connection here.
Yeah.
How do you know him?
Which version of the story do you want?
The best.
We started off as mortal enemies.
Okay.
Where I was married at the time and I wanted my husband to go kick his ass because he was mean to me online. He was cyberbullying me. And then I decided to handle it myself. And then we became friends. And then he was a client. And then he wasn't a client and screwed me over again. And then we were still friends because we're both assholes.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
That's a heck of a story.
Right?
So Brent's known for his cyber security and other things, but I didn't know he was also a cyber bully.
Well, we were in a Facebook group and I had said something and I don't even remember what it was about, but it was a big misunderstanding. But yeah, this was before a lot of censorship and
I could see it.
FU contest. I might have said he had a micro penis or something. I don't know. Usually my go-to,
right,
out of ammo.
Not a bad one.
With Brent specifically, that's your go-to.
Yeah, guys don't like that, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, I see him often now. He lives right down the street and
nice.
We're at the same golf club. So we try to golf at least once a week now, but he's a close friend. And he lived here real close, like on our street. And then I'm not sure, he moved back to Boston and then now he's back, hopefully for good.
Yeah.
But we're really excited. Our kids are kind of similar, not similar age, but his daughter is like a mentor to my kids a little bit.
Yeah. Lori and my son were like, we always joked that they were going to get married later.
Got it.
They were in like first grade, like making fun of each other and teasing each other and making each other cry. So we're like, well,
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we love it. Kind of just get the kids together. He actually just sent me something recently and it was like, you as a parent, you want to think that you have the most influence on your kids, but it's actually like your kids' friends' parents or your friends, like, or the coach, like it's really adults that are in their sphere that are not their parents.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's good to have Brent and Sydney as like tertiary parents to our kids. They're really great people.
Well, you could be saying the exact same thing to them. The kids just hear it from them and not from you.
Absolutely.
For sure.
No, I literally will text his friend's mom, Laura. I'm like, will you talk to Dane about this? And she's like, absolutely, I'm on it. Because he idolizes Laura. But then I've got a couple of his friends. I'm like their personal counselor. And they're like, don't tell my mom, but I need to talk to you about this. I'm like, okay, sit down. Can I make you a sandwich? Because I'm an ultimate Jewish mother here. So, but yeah, it takes a village.
Yes. No, that's very true. So what are you into now? Obviously real estate. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so right now I'm just running, I've been doing this, I'm in my 21st year, but I'm just selling houses the best I can. The market's kind of shit right now, but I'm also working on merging my team with a good friend of mine's team because I'm 54 and I don't want to work forever. I know I'm not old, but I also want to travel more. And I just got back from Greece on Friday. So I'm kind of working on that. Right before this, I was just finishing a book edit. I wrote a book on a program I run within my real estate business of how to like get the most referrals from your clients and like create a perks program. And that was in 2016. And I just wrote a revision, like an updated version, because it's been almost 10 years. So just working on that. And yeah, I got 3 rental homes, a vacation home. So I'm working more on investing as well because there's no retirement. There's no 401k in real estate.
So now let's go back. We like to hear people's stories. So
Yeah.
whatever your story is, kind of as early as you want to do, and we'll kind of talk through the whole career.
Okay, it's kind of a crazy story, so we'll go real fast through the beginning part. But I grew up in Los Angeles, only child. My dad died when I was 5. He was killed. And then it was me and my mom. And then she died when I was 17, 4 days before the first day of my senior year. And I remember one semester was government and the other semester was something else. But the Army guys came in to recruit. And I was like, psh, whatever, put my head down and was like sleeping, but I was kind of listening. And I just remember thinking, because my life had gotten turned upside down. I had no parents. I was living with my aunt and uncle. I'm like, okay, if things really go sideways and I have no choice, then I'll just join the army, whatever. And then I finished high school, lived with a really bad guy, making really poor choices. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to Israel because I have family there. I'm half Israeli. And I went there for like 3 months and I was like, this is not for me. So I was like, I know, I'll go back to the States and I'll join the army. And so I went to MEPS and it started though, because I took the ASVAB to get out of class. I was not a good kid, by the way. It was really not, it's a miracle I'm here. And I scored like 98 point something percentile on all that weirdness that I knew nothing of. I'm like, I don't know how motors work or physics, or I'm just a good test taker. But they think I'm this genius and they want to offer me all these jobs. I'm like, I can barely put my shoes on, guys. So I want to be a parachute rigger and I could like leave next week. And they're like, you're too qualified for that. Like, we could give you these other jobs. And I was like, I'll take cook. I don't care. I need to leave here before I find another bad boy and make really bad choices and get pregnant and all the things. So anyway, I end up going into the Signal Corps and went to basic training in Fort Dix, New Jersey. It's not there anymore. Then went to AIT in Fort Gordon, Georgia. I don't know if that's there anymore either. And then I got stationed in Germany down by the French border in Karlsruhe, and then got stationed here in Washington at Fort Lewis, or now JBLM. And I just stayed. And
Nice.
then right after the Army, literally, I lined it up like, well, I lined up pretty much everything perfectly. I got out of the Army and started the police academy. I was a deputy sheriff here locally from 94 to 2006. And I got my real estate license in 2004. So I was doing both at the end there, and then quit the department because you don't have to pick up dead bodies in real estate.
I love that
It's one
you
one of the perks.
I
Yeah.
love that you wanted to be a parachute rigger, and they said we need more qualified people doing other jobs, as if having people's
Right.
lives in your hands was for the less qualified.
Right. I just want to jump out of a plane, which I have, by the way, but
Nice.
not with the Army.
Right. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we know parachute riggers quite well because we Griffin and I were both in an airborne unit together.
Oh, nice.
That's
In
where how
Germany,
we
actually.
in
Oh,
Germany. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
My MOS at the time wasn't airborne qualified. They couldn't figure out how to throw one of those vans out of a plane and have it land safely. So I never got to do anything airborne with the Army.
Right. They're working on it. They're trying to get as much out of planes as possible. Uh,
Right?
but
Still
yeah,
not a great
parachute
track record
riggers,
of keeping vehicles safe on the way down, though.
No, I can't imagine that.
correct. Specifically our unit. In fact, a couple years before we got there, there was actually I don't know if you ever saw on the news, but I think 2 or 3 Humvees just came all the way to the ground with no parachute.
Oh,
So yeah,
fun. Did it blow
yeah.
up? I assume.
I'm sure they were damaged beyond repair. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think everybody has their unique start in real estate. And frankly, it's funny. We're in real estate here in Hawaii, and Griffin's an avid real estate investor, right? Trying to do all the things real estate. I think it's interesting. We didn't intend for this podcast to be like about real estate, but we've had a lot of
Oh,
real estate people on, which is fun. Fun for me. I love hearing different backgrounds and what's working for people and everything.
yeah.
It is about veterans and how the transition went. So I have a couple questions about that just to start in a different time, right? A little bit further back. You're at JBLM or Lewis at the time. Like, did you for sure, hey, I'm going to get out and then figure out what you were going to do? Or did you have a
No,
plan?
I can't ever, because my parents dying young, I don't have a couch to sleep on. I have no siblings. I have no safety net. So I've always had to have a plan A, B, C, D. It, I'm better now, but it used to be pretty crippling about like what I would do and wouldn't do because I couldn't take a lot of risks. Like I could never have gone from the army to real estate. And even when I left the police department, I only left because I was married at the time and still had benefits and his steady paycheck. Because I don't have that option of like somebody's going to let me stay with them. I mean, I
Mhm.
have friends, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when it goes even further back to my planning. So when I was in Germany, I was supposed to be there 2 years. And after about a year and I think a month or two, I got orders to go to Fort Drum, New York. And at first I was like, cool, I'm going stateside. And we'd say, I'm going back to the world. And then I was like, wait, hold up, where's this Fort Drum thing? And then I found out that's where everybody goes, even the Alaska people go for cold weather training. And I was like, no, not for me. And they had the highest like STD rate of all the bases everywhere because nobody leaves and they just, yeah, no. So I pitched a fit. And this is something like they say life has patterns and defining moments is I've had to advocate for myself in the weirdest ways. And this was one of them where I was like, knock to the commander. I'm like, I'm not going. And they're like, you can't, this isn't how this works. I'm like, I understand, but I'm not doing this. So we have to come up with a solution. Completely out of pocket, out of line. I think my commander was like, damn, she's got moxie and she's got some balls. So let's see where she goes with this. And he goes, well, where would you want to go? I go, well, I don't want to leave. I thought that would like help. I love my unit. And they go, well, where, if you were to leave, where would you go? And I said, Fort Ord, California, knowing it was closing and going up to Fort Lewis, Fort Huachuca, Arizona, or Fort Lewis. So I was like, okay, well, you can stay. And then I got orders to go to Fort Lewis, but I was planning that in my mind because I knew I wasn't going back to Los Angeles. I knew if you put me back in my old environment, I will become my old self. And I preach this all the time to everybody, whatever your circumstances is, you have to remove yourself from the environment. And then I knew after being in the army with a bunch of different people from all over the country that as much as I like to think I'm not a West Coast girl, I really am. I was like, I need to, wherever I get stationed is where I'm staying. So I need to be comfortable there. So then I got the Fort Lewis thing. And as soon as I got to Fort Lewis, I started scouting because I wanted to be an MP, but I was too short. Back then they had a height requirement. A woman had to be 5'6" and I was 5'2". So I was like, I wonder if I could be like a real police officer. And I was at a job fair and there was no height requirement. So I applied and out of 1,600 applicants, they hired 50 and I got it. But where it was really scary and hairy and all the things was I was E4 promotable and they were trying to send me to
DLC.
PLDC. Yes. And it was the same. I was going to miss the physical or the written for the sheriff's department. I was like, no. And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean, no? You're not going to go? We're sending you to PLDC. I'm like, I'm not going to go. And they go, you don't even know if you have this position. There were 1,600 applicants. I go, I have to take a chance on me. And then they were also trying to get, and so I did that. And then they were trying to get me to, what do you call it, reenlist and giving me all these bonuses. And I was like, no, I'm waiting to hear back. And it basically, my window closed and 2 days later I got the call that I got the position. But that 2 days was horribly like, what am I going to do if I didn't get it? And I didn't reenlist and I missed out on this huge bonus. They were going to send me wherever I wanted, all the things, but I had to take a chance on me. So I did. And then I had all this leave accrued. So basically, I never missed a paycheck. I had 30 days off in between the army getting out and starting the police academy, but I had my 30 days of leave. So, yeah.
What made you
Nice.
so sure that was the right next step? Because I think a lot of people would, they oscillate between, is this really the right move? I need to have contingencies planned, like you talked about previously.
Yeah.
How did you know, and why were you so willing to bet on yourself for that?
I don't know. This is going to get a little woo-woo here, so forgive me, but I do honestly feel like I've got a little group of angels. I don't know if it's my mom and dad or whomever, but that will push. I'll like almost hear or feel like a tug or a tap or like don't listen or like a weird guidance. And I just was even I had everybody yelling at me, telling me I was being stupid. And I couldn't shake the thought of I need to try. I need to and if it's not meant to be something else, it's going to work out. Like I didn't think they were going to kick me out of the army really if like 2 days later I got that call and they're like, sorry, next time to apply next year, that I could have done something. So that's where I just kind of was like, what's the worst case scenario here?
Yeah, well, props to you for listening to that tug or that tap or gut feeling because a
Yeah.
lot of people they're stuck in their head and can't get into their heart to make that
Yeah.
decision. Have there been other major life decisions that have had that same effect or pull on you that have led to big changes or pivots?
Oh, absolutely. Like my whole real estate thing of things that make me the most money in real estate are the things my peers are like, what is wrong with you? Are you stupid? Have you lost your mind? And I'm like, I have a good feeling about this. I'm going to trust my gut on this one. And they're like, and now at this point, they're like, okay, what harebrained idea do you have now?
Yeah, we're gonna trust your gut this time.
Right, right. And I'm not saying everything's always been perfect, but it's where actually what's funny is the more when I don't listen, when I bring too much logic in, is when things don't go so great. When I start talking myself out of something, or I'm like, well, that doesn't really work statistically. Like if I get too logical, that's where stuff isn't so good.
I think like what you said before too is you put effort and you have that ABC plans because of your background and because of just how you were brought up.
Mhm.
I think you're correct in if the pendulum swings too far to the analysis, you got to do the work up front to understand the decision, but then
Right.
trusting your gut, especially as you get a little bit more experience, is so valuable. And sometimes people, it's hard to balance the two.
Well, and also like from having that army background, I've literally shoveled shit. I've slept outside for 3 straight months in the desert. Like there's not a lot I'm not willing to do. It's, you know what I mean? Like pain is temporary, or I'll say pain is weakness leaving the body. But like I'm willing to do whatever needs to be done. And I remember my business coach at one point when we were first meeting up and the market had just tanked. It was 2011. I was destitute, lost everything, lost my house, my car, didn't lose my kid, lost my marriage, all the things. But he's like, what would you be willing to do? And I said, I literally, if somebody will pay, I will stand on the street corner to feed my child. I don't give a shit. I'll figure it out. So I think that comes from being in the army and being in the military, is that there's nothing that's beneath me to get done to make shit happen.
Well, props to you. It sounds like you're built differently than a lot of other Signal Corps folks. Nothing
Well, it
against the
was
Signal Corps.
field communicate. We were out in it wasn't, we weren't in a building in class Bs. It was like
Right.
digging trenches for the cables that the cable dogs laid. And yeah, no,
You
it was
weren't the
out.
specialist side of that branch. You were the real expeditionary field signal people.
Yeah, putting up all the camouflage over the vans. And yeah, no, it was
To
physical.
Griffin's point, in our unit, the signal officer there, our S3 called him the cloud of can't because he would always say he can't do that, sir. Can't do that, sir. How was going through the downturn and what we're experiencing now pales in comparison to
Right?
09 to 11. What did you do to pivot when things went from like being pretty dang good to like this is not just going south, but also things changing, like the entire market change, government changed on how to regulate things. Like, how did you pivot in that in within real estate to be successful?
Well, when it in 2008 is when my son was born, and that's when the market, I mean, I remember it's kind of like where were you on 9/11? I remember we almost were done with our lakefront home that was over $1 million, and this is 2007, and I was pregnant and I was sealing the grout in the tile. The tile guys did the tile, but I was like, I'll seal it. And I get a call and it's like, hey, some shit went down. I don't think we're going to be able to close this at least this week. I was like, no problem. Got just one call after the other. I had 5 in escrow, 4 fell apart in that 24 hours. And then it was October 2007. And I was like, oh God, this isn't good. And all my money was in this house. I had no cash left, and it just went so sideways. And then I had my baby in June, and I just was, I had done pretty well. So I did have enough sales to kind of keep food on the table, but not a lot. And then we split up and I got some child support and just got real creative. And then I took a position that was a salaried, it was 5,000 a month to manage the office. And I did that for 9, 10 months. But that was like a really pivotal point in all this was it was a 9 to 5. And if I had a doctor appointment, I had to ask permission. So I went from being like this independent contractor, self-employed person that I could go get my nails done in the middle of the day. I could go whatever, to now having a real job where I had to clock in and clock out. And I remember sitting there with my 5,000 a month thinking, God dang, if I just like put this time, discipline, and effort into my real estate business, I would make more than 60,000 a year. So I told them, I was like, you got to find someone else. And then as soon as they found my replacement, I still went to the office every day about 9:30, and I'd stay till about 4:30. I still paid for daycare for my son, even though I didn't have a steady paycheck coming in, but I just was like, I have to do something every day, whether it's appointments or lead generating or following up or whatever. And then that's kind of what I've done since.
Yeah. No, that's super beneficial. I think people who do experience success at the beginning sometimes lose that drive, and then they go, oh, like, let me not work 10
Oh,
hours or,
so
you know,
much of that right now in my
right,
office and everything.
right.
It got hard and everybody's giving up their license, which I'm like, cool, more for me.
Right.
But
Exactly.
when you initially started, I imagine you didn't have the systems or maybe even the same discipline that you now practice or that was kind of developed in that trough, those dark times, or maybe you did. But it
I
sounds like,
kind of did. So, one of my friends, so he used to be at the sheriff's office and he was a Marine before he went to the sheriff's office. Or I'm supposed to say he's still a Marine because once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine.
Semper Fi.
Like my ex-husband. And they introduced me to a coaching program, Brian Buffini's working by referral thing. And I went to one of his seminars or whatever. And I started doing his system before the market went bad. So that's what was able to kind of carry me through. It was still lean, but it was something. It wasn't completely dead. Like I didn't have all my contacts on like post-it notes or on napkins. Like I had a CRM, like a contact relation management computer thing, like with notes of, so I wasn't completely loosey-goosey, but I wasn't as disciplined with my time.
Yeah. Would you say that trough or that really difficult period allowed you to grow to where you are now? Like
Oh,
if you hadn't had that,
absolutely.
you may not have gotten to the same place.
No, best thing ever. I mean, obviously it sucked at the time, but like it really got me because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have taken that team leader, office manager position, which then made me realize like, because in real estate, you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't have any appointments today. I'm gonna go to the gym and then I'm gonna go run some errands. I have to go to Target. Like you just kind of screw off. But now I guess there's seasons. Like right now, I'm a little undisciplined. I just was on vacation, but
How
it
dare you?
made me get disciplined.
How dare you go on vacation?
I know, right?
I've heard it say before, don't waste hard times. And it
Yeah,
sounds like that you did exactly that. You took it. It's really hard to see it in the moment. It's really hard to capture lessons learned when you're just trying to survive.
yeah,
But I think a lot of people, especially after leaving the military, experience hard times and they experience seasons that they don't have the same community, they don't have the same purpose. And a lot of times they can just wallow in that. But if you really are able to kind of pull it together and capture a lot of those lessons learned and cultivate some of the discipline and lessons that are going to carry you and really allow for even greater future success, which is exactly what you did, then I think that's the best reaction to those sort of situations. And I know your whole life has been reacting to adverse situations like that. And so
Right.
you
What
you were
shit's gonna happen
you
now?
you were
Yeah.
uniquely positioned to do that, but it's a great lesson there for folks in similar spots.
And even for right now, I was just on a panel yesterday and we were talking about some of this, and it's like some people think that this time right now is so hard. And it's like this is nothing compared to 2008, 9, 10, 11. And I feel like if I didn't go through it before, I would think that this was really hard. And at my age, I might just quit and be like, nah, it was a good ride. I got my investment properties. I have my residual income. I get income from the book. I'm good. But I'm looking at this time as like now I get to gain more market share and go out. I'm going to grind a little harder for the next couple years, but then the reward will be that much bigger.
No, and that's super valuable because it's interesting because not everybody's cut out to stick through the hard times, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you see it. You see, I saw a statistic the other day. I think there's 25% of the number of mortgage brokers there were in 2021 compared to
Yeah.
now. And it's like it's three-quarters of mortgage brokers are out of are not renewing their licenses.
One
And
of the
it's like,
guys I used to work with the most closely, Brent knows, he doesn't reach out to me. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't you? We've been good friends. Like we've been to each other's homes and parties, and like, why aren't you reaching out? Like he's hiding. And I'm thinking that's really stupid because there's other mortgage people reaching out that have my attention, that are taking me places, that are giving me referrals, and it's, you got to be willing to get uncomfortable to make it. And that, like, after this, I got a whole bunch of calls I got to make to my database that, yeah, of course, I'm going to feel like I'm bothering them. Like, hey, anybody wants to buy
mhm.
or sell a house? If I don't do it, well, we sent out some cards the other day, and two people that I thought were my people, it was like new addresses. I'm like, okay, Megan.
Yeah, yeah,
I guess I lost your business somewhere because I didn't talk to her for a couple years. So
right.
yeah, it's a contact sport.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. I kind of want to, I don't want to pivot here, but based on what you just said, like maintaining relationships with people, how do you balance the transactional nature of real estate and actually value the relationship side? And I'm sure kind of exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of real estate agents out there who are just transactional. They're just
Mm,
like, let me sell you on this house and then let me move on. It's easier for me to find a new client than it is for me to maintain this relationship.
right.
It's clear that you've mentioned your business is based large like on referrals and you clearly do the relationship side. Why is that your choice? And is it, I get chicken or the egg? Is that just who you are, or why do you see that as better?
A little bit, and I've talked a lot about this with different people, especially in my industry. I've always just been a relational person. I have lots of friends. I'm social, and it's easier for me to call somebody I know versus cold call somebody. Now, that being said, when my life blew up in 2008, my my ex was cheating on me while I was pregnant, and everybody in our world knew except me. They all smiled at my face, came to my house, knew he had a girlfriend on the side, and I was humiliated. And I didn't want to call any of them because if I sometimes I would, and they're like, "Oh, honey, I heard about what happened. How are you?" And I'm like bawling now. I'm like, I'm just trying to sell a fucking house, okay? I don't want to talk about that. So I pivoted then and went to cold calling and just calling expired listings, canceled listings, for sale by owners because they didn't know my life was a mess and I could be whoever I wanted to be. And that was easier then because none of these people were going to ask me about my personal life or any of that. And then once my life got back in order, I ditched that and went back to working with my sphere and past clients and all that kind of stuff because it wasn't painful to talk about what's going on in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also probably leading to success too. Like, because whoever, if you're transactional and you work on being like good at relationships, you're going to be successful. And
Yeah.
if you're good at relationships and you work on the cold calling, that's what's going to lead to success as well. So the fact that you did that also, I love this. I mean, it seems like, and maybe this isn't an accurate takeaway. It seems like it is, but like you just dealt with trials in your life and you said, how am I going to take this and just grab the bull by the horns and
Right.
and go with it? And it's
Yeah.
led to so much success, clearly, like you, but those exact situations could have crippled you,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So that's such a, I mean, to me, it's a something that people should hone in on. Like
And I
you got to
will
take it
go,
and run with it.
well, I'll go back to if because I say this all the time, if it wasn't for the army, for the military, that would have crushed me. Like the army, that 8 weeks of basic training changed me. Like, I don't want to say
Mhm.
I got brainwashed, but to know me before people are, and now that they know me, like even my family does this to me all the time. And my cousin Nicole, the last time I shut it down. I was like, we're not doing this anymore, Nicole. I understand the sentiment, but it's insulting. But not the last time I saw her, but the time before, she's like, just look at you. Like, we honestly thought you would be dead or in prison. And I mean, look at you. And I'm like, that's a backhanded compliment. Why
Right.
don't we shut up? But I never finished anything I started. I went to architecture school at LA Trade Tech for 3 whole weeks. And I was like, ooh, it's a lot of math. And even to where when I signed up to do the army thing, I didn't tell a soul except my other cousin until I took the oath. Once I swore in, then I told everybody, and they're like, okay, see you in a couple weeks. And I go, no, basic training's 8 weeks. They're like, yep, see you in a couple weeks, because they knew who I was. But then once I got there, I did want to quit and I did want to go home. And I was like, no, fuck that. And I wanted to prove them wrong. And then the same thing happened when the market crashed. I had all my police buddies, my sheriff's office people saying, just come back. You don't have to go to the academy. You just have to be in someone's car. Like, because depending on how long you're gone, is if I was only gone a few months, I wouldn't even have to be in someone's car again. But if I was gone 2 years, then I'd have to go back to the academy. And I was so insulted that they were like, just come back. It's okay. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to talk. I'm like, the fact that you said nobody's going to talk means everybody's going to talk. I'm not doing that. And that's where I dug my heels in. I was like, no, fuck that. I'm not going back.
Well, and
So,
props to you because most people would have taken that familiar job back at the sheriff's office or that
yeah.
$5,000 a month job that you landed. They would
Well,
have just stuck in that indefinitely. And they'd probably,
most of the time, pride is a bad thing, but sometimes it fuels you
Mm.
because I was too prideful to go back. There was no way I was going to go back. I would have
Right.
waited tables before that.
well, call it pride or call it advocating and betting on yourself, either one. But
Right.
you
That's
certainly
it.
took the path that resulted in the better story. And I'm assuming quite a bit better quality of life for you as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, if I sold my vacation home, I technically don't have to work anymore if I wanted to live a pretty simple life based off my residual income. So I'm set. I'm good. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not saying I'm mega rich, but I could stretch out with what my net worth is. I could live the rest of my life.
Yeah.
What
No,
was it
that's
that caused you to go the sheriff or police route afterwards? Was it truly something that you really want to do, or was it this is another safe option that seems pretty familiar to the military?
Combination. So when I was young, I all I watched were all those like Magnum PI, like detective. They were always private detectives and they were always solving all the things, all the shows before your time. And so I wanted to be a detective, but to be a detective, you have to be a police officer first. You can't just go in as a detective. It's a promotion. So I was like, oh, all right, I'll do my minimum I have to do on the streets. And I wanted to be an MP, and that wasn't going to happen because it's too short. And then I was like, okay, I'll do the sheriff's office, but as soon as I can get promoted to detective, I will. But then I got in and I was like, this is kind of fun. Like chasing, because this was back in the 90s, because we could chase cars.
This is the
Yeah,
90s, no
the
rules.
90s. It was wild. And yeah, so, and then I ended up being one of the major training officers. Like when you got out of the academy, they'd put you in my car. And I enjoyed it and I didn't at the same time because like you're being responsible for this like other human that could die. So that was kind of a lot, but I just really liked it. And then I became a fraud detective, which was fun, like, because I like to solve puzzles and like all women, you get a name and you're like, give me 10 minutes. And you're like, okay, she was born in can do all that stuff. But I decided because I went in thinking I want to be a homicide detective. And then after seeing all the things I saw, I was like, I've seen enough. I've seen enough dead babies for one lifetime. I think there's a quota in which we should see dead babies, and I met it early on. I didn't want to do that. I didn't really want to get promoted and be like a sergeant and a captain and lieutenant and all that. So that's when I was like, well, I'll just sit here and solve these frauds and counterfeit cases and whatever. But I'll get my real estate license for a side gig for something fun. Like that'll bring me joy. This will bring me benefits and safety and all that. And then I got the real estate thing really worked out for me. So I was like, well, I guess I better quit.
The reason I ask is because you talked about having gotten better, improved at not needing as many contingency plans and not needing
Yeah.
that sure kind of fallback option. How have you grown through that? How have you gotten better at that throughout the years? Because I think a lot of people feel very similarly. They need to know what that next sure option is. They need to have something lined up for the second they leave the army or the
Yeah.
military. And especially even better if they can double dip and be on terminal leave and they already have a job lined up. So how have
Yeah.
you kind of grown through that?
Hoarding money, like living well below my means. This house is the house I moved into when Brent and I got in that fight when I first moved into the neighborhood, and we paid $399 for it. And my mortgage payment's stupid low. Could I have a fancy house somewhere else? Sure, but why? I buy my cars used. I have a Mercedes, but it's a 2019 and I don't need to upgrade it. Like it's fine until it doesn't run anymore or doesn't, it's starting to cause me more problems than it's worth. I don't really, I don't own a designer bag or designer shoes. I buy my stuff at Target and Marshalls. Every now and then Nordstrom for some good pieces. This shirt's from Old Navy. I think I've had it since like 2015. I don't really wear jewelry. Like I just make money and put it away and then buy another rental house. Or I have a
Right.
couple notes out now because I didn't want to get a mortgage at these crazy interest rates. And, or the first note I bought was everything was a bidding war. And I'm like, I'm not going to get in a bidding war for a house I'm never going to live in. That to me just felt weird. I would get in a bidding war for my home, but not just for a moneymaker. So I bought a note. Are we familiar with that? Okay.
We are, but for anyone listening who's not,
Oh,
could you just talk
true.
about
Okay.
some details of
So
what
my
that looks like?
investor buddy goes, hey, you want to buy a note? And I go, I don't even know what that is. He goes, well, I did owner financing on a flip. She owes me 210. I'll sell it to you for 195. And I go, so what do I do? He goes, you write a check for 195 to the escrow company, and then you get $1,100 a month direct deposited into your account. That's her mortgage payment. So, okay. So that's what I did. And then the second, I just did another one for 100,000, a HELOC on some house. I think it's in Tennessee. So my 100,000 in a savings account was getting like 200 a year, and I get 650 a month on the HELOC. So it's a depreciating investment in that as they pay it down, like the first note I got in 2020, and she owed 210, she probably owes like 180 or 170 now. So if I sold it to you, I'd sell it to you for 165, let's say. But in the meantime, I've gotten $1,100 a month for the last 5 years. So I'm not mad.
Right.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
let's say someone, just to rehash a little bit, if someone wants to invest in real estate but doesn't want to own a house, doesn't want to deal with a rental property, doesn't want to deal with tenants, toilets, trash, all the stuff that gives people headaches. A note is a pretty low lift way of doing that. I wouldn't say low risk necessarily. You have to vet the person, you have to vet the borrower of that money ultimately,
Yeah,
but it's a way of doing it without dealing with a lot of those variables.
right. No, I love it because like I've replaced dishwashers and washing machines and hose bibs that are leaking, and I don't have to do that with my notes.
That's right. And how'd you find what you said it was just a connection you had that so that
Yeah, just another guy he was in my office and then moved to Tennessee during COVID and the red wave stuff. It's like I'm getting out of Washington. And
Right.
yeah,
you may not have an answer for that. Like if someone were to want to invest in notes, do you have a way for them to learn more about it or to get in touch
not
with somebody that's doing that?
It would be getting in touch with Jonathan, my buddy, because I had a client ask the same thing. He's like, I want to invest, but I don't really have enough money to buy an actual rental house in the deal. Like, because the interest rates, the payment, like my first one, my payment was 1,300, and at first I charged 2,000 a month. Now I get 3,000 a month because the rents have gone up over time. But if I were to do it now, my payment might be like, I don't know, probably the same as what my rent is, so it doesn't pencil.
What I was saying, you're our first actual female veteran on the podcast.
Oh, really?
We have had female, we had just one other, but she was she was the CEO of a veteran organization and a
Sure.
military spouse
Yep.
that like worked towards for transitioning service members. So that was a great interview as well. But you're the first actual female veteran we've had on. And we generally ask at the end for just guidance, general guidance for people transitioning. Do you have any guidance uniquely for women who are transitioning out of service and entering into the civilian side now?
That's a great question, actually. The first thing that comes to mind, because it just came up this morning, I got a referral from an agent out of New Hampshire, of all places. And I said, I'll get back with you after one. I got to get on this veterans podcast. And he goes, Oh, are you a veteran? I go, Yeah. He goes, Oh my God, so am I. And and then we got down this whole rabbit hole of that. But I think something I'm constantly reminded of is that I need to be more vocal about it. Because I don't know if I assume people just know or I assume they don't care, but people think it's really cool. And I've never, like, none of my advertising mentions it. I don't like to lead with it because I don't want to exploit it. And that's where I've always come from. Like, I don't want to be like, hire me because I'm a veteran. But I do think I need to be more proud. I don't want to say it that way because it's not that I'm not proud. I just don't bring it up because I don't think anybody really cares, but they do. So I think that would be my advice is don't not bring it up. Is that weird?
I would also encourage you to use it a little bit more, not to like your advantage or anything, but I think it's a great way to relate to other veterans that may be looking for a house, other people,
Yeah.
other mortgage lenders. It's a great way to relate to people on a whole different level. And having looked at your stuff, I would have never guessed that you were a veteran. There's no evidence of any of it
Right.
there. And so I think you could certainly subtly put it in there just as a way of relating and having an additional connection point with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I know it surprises a lot of people because on my little Facebook and Instagram bio, it says realtor, author, combat vet, avid traveler, amateur chef. And people are like, combat vet, what? And I'm like, well, it's not like I killed anyone. I just happened to be in Iraq at the right, wrong, whatever time you want to see it. But I'm a combat vet.
I mean, that's such a good point, though. A lot of people, I think, feel that way, right? Like they don't feel like they want to bring it up because it's like they don't want that to be their only identity either.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think that's great advice. You don't have to be defined by your military service, but to Griffin's point, it can lead to some connection, at least
Yeah.
whatever. How do we just break the ice a little bit? That's great. So to go back to what we normally ask, we do end the podcast with just basically two questions. One is what can our listeners do to provide value for you?
Well, if they know anybody moving to or from the JBLM area, because I live in Bonnie Lake, just not that far from the base, that would be great because I do love to sell houses. And then as far as me helping you guys, them, veterans, whatever, I'm always down for a phone call on real estate advice. Or should I do this or that? Or would you wait? Or what makes sense? Like, that's just basically what I do all day long for free. And then sometimes it pans out. And yeah, but I love to talk about real estate. So it's never really a huge chore for me.
Yeah.
Do you
That's
work with a lot of active duty or veteran service members currently, given your
Yes,
proximity?
yes and no. So the area I live in, a little bit higher end. So when I do work with the military, it's usually officers or chief warrant officer, like it's very rarely just enlisted like private or specialist or whatever. But I do like I'm in a few military networks within Facebook for real estate, so I'll get some of that. But then some of them know my price point and they're like, I didn't want to bother you with this sale. It's only, this much and it's in this area right by the base that's lower end, lower rent area. I'm like, it's not a bother. Just because price point's a little higher doesn't mean I'm not willing to help my veterans. So there's a little bit of that stigma. One of my really close real estate friends, her husband is still a reservist, and that's her whole bread and butter is the military wives, because she was a military wife or is still with the reserves. But she really specializes in that more lower end enlisted first time home buyer, first time home seller. And then I do more of like the guy's retiring and now he's buying his dream house with his VA loan.
That was going to be one of my questions. Do you have any specific guidance for either active duty or veterans that are considering getting into real estate or want to use their VA home loan or not quite sure about the process? How do you coach them
Do it.
through? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like that old Chinese saying, when's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago? When's the second best time today? Same with, I was telling this story the other day too. I bought my first rental in 2016, told everybody, second one 2018. Actually, it was Brent's house. And that was a tap on the shoulder moment. He had asked me, he goes, I just signed a 1-year lease. Do you have any investors that would want to buy a house with tenants in place? I said, no. And then I was like, shh, no, I don't want to do that. And then the stigma for me was his house is the equivalent of my house. And I couldn't have a rental that was just as nice as my house. And my coach was like, why not? You live below your means. Like, who cares? It could be more than your house. I was like, you're right. So I bought it from him. Then the next one was 2019. And I was convinced that the market was about to tank. So I didn't tell anybody. I was like, they're all going to make fun of me for buying another rental when the market's about to take a crap.
Well, it did tank for about 2 months.
Right. I got it for 390, put 12,000 into it, and now I could sell it for probably 625, 650.
Right.
So yeah, if I got in my head and thought about it too much and analyzed of market shifts and ups and downs, I wouldn't have bought it. But I was like, you know what? I'll net or I'll cash flow. At the beginning, I was going to get 350 a month if I kept it. And I was like, that's better than a stick in the eye. Like, if the house isn't that old, it doesn't need anything other than the 12,000 I put in with carpet and paint and stuff. And then, yeah, like the best time, or what's the saying I just started is, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. So, but I do tell people, like, especially veterans that are just here for, like, I think we're going to be PCSing in a year or two, depending on the market. Like right now, I'd say I wouldn't buy. I would just rent, because in my area, because there's not enough profit margin. You got to wait unless they tell me we would keep it as a rental, then absolutely buy it.
Do you do property management as well?
I don't. I
Yeah.
manage my own rentals, but I'm not licensed to manage other people's.
Got it. Yeah, in
That's,
Hawaii, it's just the same license.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so
My brokerage won't, you have to have, and I've asked them about it because I always get people asking me, to be profitable, you have to manage at least like 30 or 40 doors. And I don't want to take that on. That's like having 30 or 40 children.
right.
But I have
I,
a,
I I say tenants, toilets, and termites, and Griffin just added another one, so it's trash now. So now it's going to be toilets, tenants, and termites and trash.
yeah,
So dealing
yeah.
with all the problems.
I haven't had problems. So another where I listened to my gut and not logic. And it was from my friend that told me about the note buying thing. He told me not to buy my first rental because it was too nice. He goes, you need to buy more of a shit box that everybody can rent, even Section 8. I was like, no, I'm going to use my own advice when I tell agents of like, nowadays we'd say create your avatar of like your ideal client. And I did that for who's my ideal tenant. And it was like when I split up with my ex and I was a single mom with a baby and 2 dogs and all the things. And I needed a house and I was going to take care of it just like I took care of a house I owned. And that was who I wanted. So I bought that house, and the other three or the other two are nicer than that one even. And every tenant I've had except for one has left them nicer than when they got it. Like, they're like, we put a ceiling fan in the bedroom. I hope you didn't mind. We use this electrician. And I'm like, okay, sure. So by having higher end rentals, there's not been the trash issue.
Right.
And we don't have
Right.
termites in Washington.
Right. Well,
Well,
Liz, I appreciate it. I think this is phenomenal. I want to connect you and Courtney. I think you guys would absolutely have a lot to talk about. My wife is Courtney.
Oh, I'm like, okay, who's Courtney?
Yeah. But
Jack's dog.
yeah.
I love dogs.
But yeah, and we actually travel we try to go up to Washington once a year. We have very close friends there. And sometimes when we go home to Wisconsin, we stop in
Oh,
Washington. So
okay.
maybe we'll be able to grab a lunch or a dinner sometime at some
Yeah,
point.
for sure. I have a place, my vacation home, Brent talks about moving up there too, up in the mountains, the Cascades in a place called Tumble Creek, which if you golf, it's a Tom Doak golf course, but I don't
Oh,
have
wow.
a
Okay.
membership.
Yeah.
It's a 75,000 buy-in, and for somebody that doesn't golf, I'm not doing that.
Right.
But I have the swim membership. We can go swimming.
There you go. Yeah, Brent and I are actually trying to plan out a golf trip on the mainland somewhere.
Well, if you guys go to Suncadia, that's where the public, or I don't know if it's public. I can get you in there.
Okay.
My house is right there too, and you guys can stay at the cabin. And
there you go. The Northwest is so beautiful. I definitely think our timing is, if it's a fall trip, I don't know if maybe the Northwest will be beautiful, but maybe a little
September is
rainy.
still beautiful.
Yeah.
October's going to get a little, today's going to be 72, tomorrow's going to be 54.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time. Frankly, I know you guys, I'm sure you're busy, but we really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Really a pleasure, Liz. And I'd love to just, if you have any final thoughts or piece of advice for someone who's either transitioning now out of the military or considering going through that transition, would love to solicit that from you.
I would say bet on yourself. Know that you can do hard things, and life is not a dress rehearsal.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome, Liz. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. See you later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Veteran Ventures podcast. If you heard something interesting or found the show to be helpful, send it to a friend who is transitioning out of the military or considering a transition. We'd also really appreciate if you left a rating and review of the show. That helps us reach more people with these amazing stories of successful veterans. We'll catch you next time on the Veteran Ventures podcast. And until then, go do the thing. Make that decision, have that conversation, and go find your next mission.